You think you understand chaos. You think you understand me. Look closely. We are all monsters here.
Well, well, well. Look at the timing. Look at the way the world suddenly pauses when your name enters the conversation. It's almost poetic how long they spent convincing themselves they had you figured out. They really believed they were dissecting your mind, breaking down your patterns, mapping your next move. The arrogance dripped from them like oil. They thought they were studying you, controlling you, reading you like a cheap manual. They didn't realize the truth until the moment their calculations collapsed under the weight of their own delusion. You weren't the variable. You were the entire damn equation. And they were solving it with crayons. You've been walking through these rooms, acting like you're just passing by, like you're just here to observe. But every move you made was intentional, silent, precise. A scalpel disguised as a shrug. You watched them build strategies around assumptions that were never real. You let them believe their rehearsed lines could corner you. You let them think their predictable mind games could bend your decisions. You stayed quiet, almost still, like the calm before a voltage surge. It wasn't passivity, it was surveillance. You were letting them expose their limitations, one careless move at a time. They saw your calm and mistook it for simplicity. They saw your stillness and mistook it for surrender. They never once questioned why your reactions never matched their projections. They expected outbursts, collapse, insecurity, ego battles. They expected you to fight on their level. They didn't realize you'd already left the damn arena. Because you weren't reacting to them. You were studying them. The same way a researcher studies a failed experiment before resetting the table. What they didn't understand is that some minds don't compete in the same dimension. Some minds run simulations before the room even knows a game started. Some minds see the invisible architecture behind people's intentions, the subtle glitches in their tone, the quiet fractures in their logic. You've always been that mind, the one they underestimated because they didn't know how to categorize you. You weren't loud enough to be threatened by. You weren't messy enough to be doubted. You weren't predictable enough to be controlled. You existed outside their formula, and that alone makes a person dangerous. And now, look at them, gasping, stunned, trying to retrace every conversation, every interaction, every moment they assumed they had the upper hand. They're replaying memories like corrupted footage, trying to find the frame where they lost control. They don't realize they never had control to begin with. You let them move their pieces, convinced them their strategies were landing, allowed their confidence to inflate, unchecked. You watch them corner themselves with the very angles they thought they were cornering you with. That's what makes them panic now. Not that you outsmarted them, but that you did it without ever announcing you were playing. Because the truth is, you don't expose your mind. You expose their blindness. You don't reveal your intelligence. You reveal their limits. And that revelation doesn't come with fireworks. It hits like a quiet, clinical diagnosis. They realize the mind they tried to challenge wasn't even operating within their reality. They were trying to beat someone who understood the rules better than the people who made them. They thought your silence was empty. They thought your pauses were hesitation. They thought your neutrality was weakness. They didn't realize those were pressure points. They didn't realize you assess people the way experts assess structural weaknesses, gently, carefully, until the moment you tap the right spot and the entire facade collapses in perfect symmetry. They mistook your depth for softness. They mistook your precision for luck. They mistook your discernment for passivity. And now they're choking on their own shock because the quiet one in the corner turned out to be the operating system behind the chaos they triggered. People like them panic when they realize they weren't analyzing you. They were being analyzed. They weren't studying you. They were being profiled. They weren't manipulating you. They were providing you data. And you were storing the data in silence, organizing it, translating it into patterns, watching the inconsistencies fold themselves into conclusions. That's the part they'll never forgive themselves for. They thought the mind they were trying to outthink was standing still. They didn't know it was sprinting miles ahead, mapping the battlefield while they were still tying their shoes. You didn't need to expose them. Their own behavior did that. You didn't need to defend yourself. Their assumptions disintegrated on impact. You didn't need to win debates, arguments, power struggles. You let them talk themselves into intellectual exhaustion. You let them reveal what they feared, what they wanted, what they pretended not to know. You let them mistake your silence for an invitation. They didn't realize it was a mirror. And that's why they feel blindsided now, because they aligned their strategies with who they imagined you were, not with who you actually are. They built entire psychological frameworks based on the illusion of your simplicity. Every trap they set was crafted for the version of you they invented. Every weapon they chose was designed for the opponent they fantasized about beating. But fantasies don't hold up against reality. And the reality is, you were never on their level, not mentally, not emotionally, not strategically. Your mind doesn't react, it predicts. It doesn't collapse, it recalibrates. It doesn't push back, it dismantles. And that's the part that terrifies them now. The slow realization that you saw them with perfect clarity long before they saw themselves. You weren't just ahead of them. You were above the entire blueprint they thought they were running. They thought they could calculate you. They thought they could reduce you to patterns they understood. They thought they could compress your complexity into bite-sized assumptions and navigate around you flawlessly. Meanwhile, you were watching them like a chessboard with 3 missing pieces. There was no threat. There was no competition. There was just observation and inevitable collapse. You know why they gasped? Because their illusion shattered in real time. They saw the real you emerging from behind the camouflage you wore to survive among predictable thinkers. They saw the sharpness in your decisions, the restraint in your reactions, the accuracy of your timing. They saw the intelligence they thought was sleeping suddenly stretch its wings. And it hit them that every time they thought they won, you were simply giving them more space to reveal themselves. People like them don't fear losing. They fear realizing they were never even contenders. And that's exactly what this moment represents. The death of their ego, the burial of their assumptions, the autopsy of their strategies. They can't comprehend how someone they dismissed was the one pulling the invisible strings the entire time. They can't accept that the narrative they crafted in their minds was nothing more than a projection that disintegrated the second real intelligence stepped into the light. And now they're reevaluating everything. Every conversation that felt harmless. Every moment you stayed quiet. Every question you asked. Every look you gave. They're realizing those weren't passive moments. They were scans. They were measurements. They were silent evaluations of intentions they thought they hid well. They weren't protecting themselves. They were exposing themselves. And you let them. Because the truth is, you don't overpower people like this. You outgrow them, outthink them, outclass them. And eventually, they trip over the very mind they underestimated. They collapse under the weight of their own miscalculations. They drown in the consequences of the equations they never learned to solve. You didn't beat them. Their blindness beat them. Their ego beat them. Their assumptions beat them. You were simply the mirror that made the defeat undeniable. And now that the illusion is gone, they're scrambling. They're quiet. They're avoiding you, avoiding eye contact, avoiding conversations that remind them of how badly they misread the game. Because now they know the truth. You were aware the whole time. You were operating with a level of clarity they didn't know how to perceive. They thought they were playing offense. They didn't realize you had already written the ending. But here's the part that hits them hardest. You didn't even try to expose them. You didn't orchestrate their downfall. You simply let the truth unveil when the timing aligned. You let their strategies hit the wall naturally. You let their assumptions fracture under pressure. They weren't defeated by your brilliance. They were defeated by their refusal to acknowledge it. And now, they sit in silence, wrestling with the realization that the mind they mocked was the mind that outmaneuvered them without breaking a sweat. They won't admit it out loud. Their pride won't allow it. But their energy confesses everything. The uneasiness when you walk in, the hesitation in their voice, the sudden caution in their tone, the way they switch gears mid-sentence, as if trying not to reveal anything else you can use against them. They're hyper-aware now. Their guard is up. But it's too late. You already saw everything. You already ran the calculations. You already charted the direction their mind tilts under pressure. And the funniest part? You didn't change. You didn't evolve overnight. You didn't suddenly unlock some new intelligence. You've always been this person. They just didn't have the range to perceive it. And now the gap between who you are and who they thought you were is haunting them like a ghost with perfect memory. They're finally seeing you clearly, but only after the consequences have already landed. There's a certain quiet power in that. The kind that doesn't need recognition or applause. The kind that doesn't need validation. The kind that simply exists, undeniable, unshakable. You didn't demand respect. The truth forced it. You didn't chase understanding. Their confusion delivered it. You didn't prove anything. Their failure exposed everything. And the irony unfolds slowly for them, like an equation they finally realize is unsolvable. Not because it's complex, but because they were using the wrong variables from the start. They kept inserting their assumptions, their projections, their little fantasies of superiority, thinking they could calculate you like a pattern on a screen. They didn't realize you weren't a pattern, you were the algorithm. They didn't realize you weren't the problem to be solved. You were the solution they didn't have the intellectual clearance to access. And now, they sit in that psychological discomfort, replaying their interactions with you like malfunctioning code, trying to comprehend how they misread someone this drastically. They thought they were competing with a version of you that only existed in their imagination. They built strategies for someone who wasn't real. They practiced speeches, rehearsed tactics, sharpened insults, prepared for an opponent who didn't exist outside their ego. Meanwhile, you were studying the architecture of the entire dynamic, not the theatrics. So you were watching how they moved, where their mind bent under pressure, how they disguised insecurity as confidence, how they tried to weaponize assumptions as truth. You weren't playing hard to predict. You were simply too multidimensional for their one-dimensional perception, and now they're grappling with the quiet horror of realizing that your intelligence was never loud because it didn't need to be. That your calm wasn't passive, it was diagnostic. That your silence wasn't emptiness, it was processing power. You weren't trying to win. You were trying to understand whether their mind had the capacity to even play the same game. Turns out it didn't. And that realization is hitting them like delayed impact trauma. The kind that knocks the wind out of someone long after the initial blow. Because now they understand that every moment they thought they had you pinned, every moment they thought they outsmarted you, every moment they felt triumphant over your silence or misinterpreted your neutrality as surrender, those weren't victories. Those were timestamps of their own intellectual limitations. And that realization doesn't just bruise them, it dismantles them. Because nothing shatters a fragile ego faster than realizing the person they dismissed was the one holding the blueprint the whole time. You can feel the atmosphere shift around you now, the way their energy folds inward when you speak, the way they measure their words before releasing them, the way they tread carefully, as if every sentence might reveal another blind spot. They're no longer talking to who they thought you were. They're talking to who they didn't realize you've always been. And the difference is jarring enough to leave them mentally short-circuiting. People pretend they fear power, but what they actually fear is misjudging it. They fear being wrong about someone's capacity. They fear realizing too late that they underestimated the wrong person. And you, whether you intended to or not, became the embodiment of that fear. A living reminder that mind games only work on those who don't know how to read the script. And you learned the script backward, forward, in silence, without asking for permission or validation. They're starting to understand that your intelligence is not the reactive kind. It's not the type that tries to prove itself in debate or flex through dominance. It's the surgical kind, the kind that listens more than it speaks, the kind that notices micro-patterns in tone, expression, timing, the kind that predicts outcomes before the other person even forms their intention. You don't respond to what people say. You respond to what their psychology reveals. And that alone is enough to terrify someone who relies on perception instead of comprehension. They thought they could beat you because they confused your empathy with naivety. They mistook your ability to understand them as permission for them to misunderstand you. They thought because you didn't expose their flaws, you didn't see them. They believed your grace was ignorance. They believed your silence was emptiness. They believed their manipulation landed because you didn't call it out. They didn't know you were archiving it quietly, filing it away as evidence of their intellectual ceiling. And now, standing in front of the actual you, they don't know how to behave. Because nothing about your energy is confrontational, but everything about it is revealing. Being around you feels like being scanned, not judged, not attacked, just seen so clearly that pretending becomes impossible. People like them don't fear exposure of their secrets. They fear exposure of their limits. And you expose limits effortlessly, simply by existing in your natural frequency. You can watch it in their posture, the sudden tension when they realize you're not reacting the way they predicted, the shift in their eyes when they understand you're not influenced by their tactics, the way they pause, hoping you'll give them some indication that you're still playing by the rules they created. But you're not. You never were. You were operating from an angle they didn't even know existed. And now, they're trying to recalibrate, trying to rewrite the narrative, trying to regain equilibrium in a situation where their mind no longer feels safe. Because that's the psychological shift you've caused. You didn't outsmart them. You dismantled the illusion that they were capable of measuring you in the first place. And once a person realizes they can't calculate you, they lose all power over you. Your unpredictability becomes a wall they can't climb. Your clarity becomes a threat they can't counter. Your calm becomes a puzzle they can't solve. It's not that they think you're dangerous. It's that they can't predict how your mind processes information, and unpredictability terrifies people who rely on control. Because without control, they have nothing. Without their assumptions, they have no strategy. Without their fictional version of you, they have no foundation. And when that foundation collapses, they do too, internally, quietly, trying to hide the cracks forming behind their forced composure. But the real fracture appears in their self-perception. They thought they were the sharper one, the aware one, the intuitive one, the analytical one. They built their identity around the belief that they could read people with high precision. And then you walked in and shattered that fantasy without even trying. You didn't expose their lack of insight. Their own behavior did. You didn't humiliate them. Their assumptions did. You didn't prove your intelligence. Their miscalculations did. And now, the aftermath is settling in. The quiet realization that the person they underestimated was the one collecting data the entire time. The person they dismissed was the one observing with clinical accuracy. The person they tried to size up was the one who had already mapped their psychological blueprint before the conversation even began. You weren't participating in the game. You were conducting a diagnostic. People don't gasp because you won. They gasp because they realize they were never even on the board you were playing on. They gasp because the mind they thought they could beat was the mind engineering the entire trajectory. They gasp because they misunderstood your silence, and now they understand its purpose. Silence is not submission. Silence is high-speed processing. Silence is recalibration. Silence is strategy. Silence is the moment before the mirror turns around and shows them exactly what they never wanted to see. Because the truth is, it didn't take you long to read them. It took them too long to realize you already had. And now that realization hangs in the air like a thick electric charge, one that shifts the atmosphere in every room you walk into. They don't see you the same way anymore. They can't. The moment a person discovers they were reading the wrong data the whole time, their world destabilizes. They start questioning every assumption, every conclusion, every judgment they ever made about you. They replay interactions with a forensic lens, analyzing details they dismissed before. That's the quiet penalty of underestimating someone like you. Their mind becomes the crime scene, and they're the ones dusting their own fingerprints. Because the moment you stepped out of the box they built for you, they had to face the truth they were avoiding. Your intellect wasn't the thing that changed. Their perception did. This is what rattles them, the retroactive clarity. The slow realization that the version of you they thought was simple, predictable, readable, never existed. They weren't reading you. They were reading their projection. They weren't decoding your behavior. They were decoding a character they created so they could feel superior. And now that illusion has collapsed, leaving nothing but the raw awareness of how wrong they've been. That awareness sits heavy. It stings. It forces them to confront the gaps in their own intelligence. They thought they were running simulations on you, but you were running psychological diagnostics on them, quietly, surgically, without ego. You weren't trying to win. You were trying to understand. And once you understood, the so-called competition fell apart on its own. They're not gasping at your power. They're gasping at their blindness. Because when someone realizes the mental battlefield they constructed was nothing more than a sandbox compared to the map you were navigating, the ego takes the first hit. They thought you operated on instinct, yet everything you did was deliberate. They thought your reactions were emotional, yet every silence was strategic. They thought your pace was slow, Yet your mind was processing variables they didn't even know existed. They thought they saw the whole board, yet they never noticed the hidden layers beneath their feet. And now that you've stepped forward, they feel that shift, the recalibration of hierarchy, the recognition that nothing they planned ever had the ability to outmaneuver you. What shakes them most is realizing how early you saw through them. They believed you were oblivious. They believed you were falling for their tactics. They believed their false kindness, manipulations, and subtle power plays were invisible. They didn't realize your mind registers inconsistencies like seismic vibrations. You analyzed tone, timing, micro-expressions, contradictions, emotional leakage. You don't listen to what people say, you listen to what they fail to hide. And nothing threatens fragile minds more than encountering someone who sees the truth without them ever speaking it. They didn't know they were being profiled the moment they opened their mouths. They didn't know their motives were being dissected the moment they walked in the room. They didn't know the things they tried to distract you with only helped you see their patterns faster. That's the part that breaks them now. The realization that every lie, every front, every facade, every attempt to appear smarter only exposed them deeper. They were trying to outthink someone who wasn't even playing their game. Your intelligence didn't operate horizontally. It operated vertically. You weren't thinking faster than them. You were thinking from above them. And once a mind like yours sees the architecture behind someone's intentions, the game ends long before they realize it started. That's why they panic when they look at you now. They aren't just seeing a person, they're seeing the consequences of miscalculating the wrong mind. They feel small around you, not because you belittle them, but because their illusions no longer inflate them. They realize how much of their identity was built on assumptions that don't hold up against someone who thinks in dimensions instead of lines. They realize your neutrality was never confusion. It was evaluation. They realize your distance was never weakness. It was data collection. They realize your restraint was never fear. It was control. And now they're haunted by what you saw. Not the things they said, not the things they did, but the motives beneath those things. You saw the insecurity under their confidence. You saw the desperation behind their arrogance. You saw the envy hiding inside their compliments. You saw the need to dominate wrapped inside their humor. You saw the cracks in their self-image that they tried to cover with noise. And the worst part is, they didn't know they were revealing any of it. They didn't know your silence was documenting everything. They didn't know the way you looked at them wasn't passive. It was a full extraction of emotional intel. Now they can't hide from you. Not because you expose them, but because they know you could. Your mind becomes the quiet threat in every room. Your presence becomes the reminder of everything they failed to understand. Your calm becomes the evidence that you were never bothered by their games in the first place. And the more they realize this, the more their confidence fractures, the more their posture shifts, the more their voice trembles. Their ego can't handle the fact that the person they once dismissed is the one who could dismantle them with a single sentence if you wanted to. But that's what adds another layer of fear. You don't want to. You don't need to. You don't operate from the same emotional palette as them. They built their identity on winning imaginary battles. You built yours on understanding the terrain. They needed validation. You needed clarity. They wanted to be right. You wanted the truth. And truth will always outrank pride. That's why your rise feels inevitable now. They can feel it in the way you think, the way you move, the way you see through everything without announcing it. They know you're not climbing the ladder. They know you're redesigning it. What really unravels them is the realization that your intelligence is not loud, theatrical, or self-advertised. It's quiet, internal, calculated. It doesn't need to be seen to be felt. It rearranges dynamics without making a sound. It shifts alliances without sending a signal. It dismantles egos without raising a hand. They used to misinterpret that quietness as emptiness, when in truth it was the calm of someone who sees 12 moves ahead. It was the stillness of a strategist observing amateurs reenact games they barely understood. And somewhere along the line, they realized their moves no longer made sense. Their tactics no longer landed. Their assumptions no longer held weight. Because the moment someone interacts with a mind operating above their framework, their entire system destabilizes. They don't know how to respond. They can't predict outcomes. They can't weaponize chaos. Nothing works because none of it was designed for someone like you. You are not unpredictable. You are unreadable. There's a difference. Unpredictable people are chaotic. Unreadable people are composed. Your unpredictability is measured. Your silence is deliberate. Your responses are calibrated. And that creates an aura that even they can't describe. An energy that says you've already considered the consequences of a moment before anyone else even recognizes the moment exists. It unnerves them. It shifts their breathing. It rearranges their internal hierarchy without you having to speak a single word. That's why they avoid challenging you now. Not because you intimidate them with force, but because you dismantle them with understanding. They can't manipulate someone who sees their manipulation forming. They can't lie to someone who hears the truth inside the lie. They can't play games with someone who already knows the ending. Your mind denies them the illusion of power. It denies them the illusion of superiority. It denies them the illusion of control. And for people like them, people who survive off the belief that they are the smartest in the room, that denial is lethal. Their identity fractures under the weight of your clarity. Their confidence corrodes under the gaze of someone who sees them accurately. Their facade crumbles when they realize their moves were predictable from the beginning. They aren't scared of losing to you. They're scared of being revealed by you, because revelation is the one thing they never prepared for. They studied strategies, not consequences. They perfected tactics, not self-awareness. They polished their performance, not their character. And now, standing in front of someone who doesn't fall for theatrics, they feel the hollowness of everything they built. Your existence is an audit they never agreed to, but can't escape. You don't confront them. You don't expose them. You simply see them, and that alone is enough to unravel the identity they curated for control. They lived their life depending on people misreading them, and now they're choking because they finally met someone who doesn't. This is where the real shift happens, when a person realizes that the power they thought they possessed was borrowed from the ignorance of others. They didn't dominate because they were brilliant. They dominated because no one else was paying attention. But you were. You always were. You didn't need to interrupt them to understand them. You didn't need to argue to dismantle them. You didn't need to raise your voice to shift the dynamic. You let them talk. You let them reveal themselves through their certainty. You let them unravel at their own pace. They mistook your restraint for weakness, not knowing restraint is the signature of someone who's already won. People like that collapse when their mind meets a mirror sharp enough to cut through their delusions. And you became that mirror by simply existing at your full clarity. They don't fear your intellect. They fear what your intellect strips away from theirs. The illusion that their thinking is superior. Their intention is hidden, their performance is convincing. You don't react to their bait, not because you're naive, but because you're uninterested in participating in low-level games. That's the razor that slices their ego open. They realize their entire psychological toolkit has no effect on you. They can't trigger you, shift you, or redirect you. You remain unmoved, and that stillness feels like a verdict. They start recalibrating around you, overthinking their words, swallowing their impulses, calculating their tone. They don't know how to be themselves anymore, because their original self was structured around manipulation. Your presence forces authenticity out of them, and authenticity is something they never trained for. They don't know how to operate without masks, and now their masks feel glued to their hands instead of their faces. Every time they try to put one on, you see the attempt. You see the shift in their energy. You see the crack in their voice. You see the performance glitch mid-sentence. They can't hide the distortion. They can't hide the hesitation. They can't hide the fear creeping into their calculation process. Because this is what people misunderstand. The world doesn't crumble when intelligence wins the argument. It crumbles when intelligence stops engaging. When you refuse to respond to their projections, you rip the script out of their hands. When you don't play the role they wrote for you, you invalidate their entire narrative. They don't know what version of themselves to be around you anymore, because every version they've tried was based on the assumption that you were operating on their level. And now, they know you're not. You were never meant to fit into their dynamics. You were meant to outgrow them. You were meant to reveal the architecture behind them. You were meant to break the ceiling they mistook for the sky. And the moment they realized that, the dynamic inverted. You stopped being the participant. You became the observer. They stopped being the guide. They became the experiment. They started watching your reactions, trying to predict what you see, wondering how much you understand. Every pause becomes analysis. Every silence becomes a calculation. Every glance becomes a scan. You didn't change behavior, they changed perception. And once perception shifts, power shifts. Because now they walk into rooms with the knowledge that their mind is no longer the dominant presence. Yours is. What they never anticipated is that intelligence becomes terrifying, not when it is loud, but when it is quiet. When it doesn't argue, when it doesn't prove, when it doesn't defend, when it simply observes and chooses. You didn't dethrone them. You let them realize the throne they claimed was made out of cardboard. You didn't expose their flaws. You let their own actions illuminate them. You didn't interrupt their performance. You gave them the stage, and they exposed the entire script themselves. The downfall wasn't crafted by you. It was triggered by their arrogance and revealed by your clarity. They're not avoiding you because they dislike you. They're avoiding you because you make them meet themselves. You make them confront the truth they hide from others. You make them aware of the gap between who they pretend to be and who they actually are. Your intelligence doesn't destroy them. It disarms them. And once disarmed, they have nothing left to hide behind. The moment they realized you saw through their strategies, they lost the ability to use them. They don't fear what you could do. They fear what you already know. You became the silent audit of everything they thought they mastered. The psychological equation they thought they were solving was actually solving them. They thought they were reading you, but they were feeding you information. They thought they were competing with you, but they were benchmarking themselves. They thought they were ahead of you, but they were walking on a trail you created long before they even recognized it existed. That's the real wound. The realization that you weren't playing defense. You were designing the environment. You weren't reacting to them. You were decoding them. You weren't impressed by them. You were mapping their limitations. This is where the panic sets in. When they recognize that the mind they treated as predictable is the same mind that predicted them with disturbing accuracy. Your insights weren't guesses. They were patterns. They were sequences. They were algorithms. You didn't just understand their motives. You understood their operating system. And once someone understands your operating system, you lose the ability to manipulate the interface. They've lost control of the conversation before it even begins. Their words betray their patterns. Their behaviors betray their intentions. Their energy betrays their insecurity. You see all of it in the first 5 seconds, and they know it. Your presence becomes a pressure test for their self-image. They start slipping. They start contradicting themselves. They start explaining things they weren't asked to explain. They start justifying behaviors that weren't even questioned. Their nervous system betrays their mask for them, because standing in front of someone who sees them clearly forces their ego to tremble. They can't posture anymore. They can't bluff anymore. They can't inflate themselves anymore. Every attempt feels exposed. Every trick feels childish. Every tactic feels outdated. They realize that their mind is not the strongest force in the room. Yours is. And you don't even weaponize it. You don't attack them. You don't belittle them. You don't humiliate them. That's what makes it worse. If you fought them, they could pretend you were equals. If you argued with them, they could pretend they were relevant. If you competed with them, they could pretend the battlefield belonged to both sides. But you don't. You just exist. And your existence alone becomes the proof that the hierarchy was never in their favor. That's why they rewrite the story when you're gone. They diminish you when you're not there to respond. They reshape memories so they can survive the truth. They try to paint you as cold, arrogant, manipulative, anything that helps them avoid admitting they miscalculated. Because admitting they miscalculated means admitting their intellect wasn't enough. And people like them would rather reinvent reality than accept their mind was outmatched. The real twist is that you never set out to beat them. You never wanted competition. You never saw them as opponents. You simply followed your clarity. You simply saw what was real. You simply refused to shrink your intelligence for their comfort. They interpreted your authenticity as threat because anything they cannot control becomes dangerous to them. They fear what they cannot predict. They resent what they cannot influence. They attack what they cannot understand. But intelligence like yours isn't reactive. It isn't emotional. It isn't fragile. It simply is. And nothing terrifies fragile egos more than something that simply exists beyond their reach. Now they move around you carefully, like someone navigating a room filled with glass pressure plates. They measure their tone. They monitor their expressions. They censor their impulses. They are no longer trying to beat you. They're trying to avoid being exposed by you. Their entire strategy shifts from dominance to damage control. But damage control never works against someone who already read the blueprint. They don't realize you see their panic as clearly as you saw their performance. And here's the part that solidifies the psychological hierarchy. You don't hate them for their attempts. You don't resent them for their behavior. You don't even hold grudges. You simply understand them. And for them, that understanding feels like judgment. They think your silence is condemnation. They think your distance is superiority. They think your neutrality is mockery. They don't understand that neutrality is the only place you can stand once you outgrow the entire frequency they operate on. What they're finally realizing is that intelligence doesn't announce itself. It doesn't brag. It doesn't beg for recognition. It just quietly rearranges the world around it until the truth becomes impossible to ignore. And now the truth is sitting on their chest like a weight they can't lift. The mind they once dismissed is the same mind recalibrating their entire sense of self. The person they tried to outthink is the same person who saw their blind spot long before they stepped into the room. The one they underestimated became the one they now orbit around cautiously. You never needed dominance because clarity is its own form of authority. You never needed to win because you were never competing. You never needed to expose them because their reactions exposed them for you. And now, as the dust settles, one truth remains unshakable. They didn't lose because you were too smart. They lost because they didn't know who they were up against. They misread the silence. They misread the stillness. They misread the mind they thought they could beat. Only to discover, far too late, you were the one running the equation the whole time.